Hello, and welcome to Find It. You guys, tonight is so special for me, and I always get excited about all of my guests because they've been amazing, and I learned so much from them. But guess what? I can honestly say this is my favorite guest by far, no matter how the interview goes, because it's my son. His name is Dalton Anthony Bettendorf, and he is here live with me at my home, at our home today. And I just can't wait for you guys to meet him, pipe in and ask questions. And he will be right back with us after this. Welcome to Find It, and welcome Dalton to the show. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you're here with me and you get to talk about everything going on in your life. And he's really not on social media. So
No,
not really, not too much. So a lot of people already talking. Hi, Jerry Eisenhower. Oh, Shannon Mavis, thank you guys for being here. So we are going to have a nice little chat about what Dalton has going on and some of the things that he's working on in his life. So in his bio, you guys have read that you're a graduate of the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He's a Bearcat. And then you can give everybody like a little update of when you graduated, what you graduated in, and what you went and did.
Okay. I graduated from UC in 2017 with a master's, with a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in business. Haven't really used that minor in business yet. And then I went and worked as a CPST provider. It's a fancy name for a case manager at Paint Valley Mental Health for about 3.5, 4 years. And then I applied to a job at Ohio State as a PCT, which is a Psychiatric Care Technician. It's another one of those fancy terms for a nurse's aide in a psych unit.
Yeah.
And I've been working there for a year and close to 6 months now. So
yeah. So what made you decide to go into the field of psychology?
I think I had just a moment that a lot of college students talk about, where it's like you're finally on your own. You kind of get away from all of the noise of your life, and then you kind of think to yourself, like, what the heck am I doing? What do I want to do? And so, I always knew that I wanted to help people. I didn't really know how to go about doing that. So like I was in pre-med for a while, and then it didn't feel right. So then I talked to my advisor. I was like, I really like philosophy, and of course my advisor's like leaning forward and adjusting herself and is like, well, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, I'm just going to talk to people, So, and this is it's kind of weird too, because it was before a lot of this podcasting and YouTubing and all of that. So like, it's funny how it kind of worked out. So I was like, well, and she was like, well, have you thought about psychology? And I was like, oh yeah, I've taken a couple of psych courses before, so I kind of understood where what she was getting at. But after I got in and started learning all the material and things, I was like, this is just applied philosophy. I love it. So.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Dalton was graduating from high school, I was in the school, and his psychology teacher, it was just an extra course, right, that you had taken, just I'm going to take a psychology class.
Yep.
And she stopped me in the office and she said, Mrs. Bettendorf. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I know Dalton has already determined what he wants to do when he goes to college, but he loves my psychology course, and he has really good questions, and we have great discussion. And so have you ever talked to Mrs. Veerhoff about,
No, I need to talk. I need to get back with her.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's retired now, but it'd be nice to connect with her again, because
Like, you won't
it's
believe
so
what I'm doing.
amazing. Yeah. It's
Yep.
so amazing when there are teachers that take that that little extra something to pay attention to what the kids are naturally good at and what they enjoy. So she kind of knew before you knew,
Mm-hmm.
right?
She was a very insightful woman. So.
Right. But I want to talk a little bit about the fact that, I don't know if I want to go. I mean, if you want to talk about some of your own struggles.
Well, first off, I do exist. I know I haven't met everybody, so I know that a lot of you haven't like met me. This is the first time we're really meeting each other, and it's a one-way conversation. So kind of, I know we have the chat right there. So
yeah.
So yeah, I do exist. To everybody that already knows me, hi, I'm still kicking. So still plugging away. So, and yeah, so as I'm working through as a PCT, I applied to the master's program in social work, and because I had to prove that I can handle the coursework, handle the field, so social work kind of gives you that all around working with people, and a lot of the coursework kind of lays a good foundation for you to continue on, if you want to continue, like, get your PhD in social work or branch out into a different field. So the cool aspect about it was, I actually got this idea from my buddy Eric Tapman. His girlfriend was doing similar things to what I wanted to do, and she was like, "Oh, go into social work, get your master's, and then you can go back and get like your PhD." She wanted to get her MD and become a psychiatrist, but I didn't really want to do that. And honestly, after working in a hospital setting for a while, I kind of realized, like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. I want to do more of the therapy and the one-on-one and talking with people. That's not to say that the medication is not an important aspect to caring for mental health. And, like I tell people, you'd never tell a diabetic, hey, don't take your insulin, just walk it off. You know what I mean? You're not going to walk that off, guys.
No.
That's not something that you can, so, there are imbalances in the brain. There are things that medication can do to really give you a chance to really handle some of the problems that people encounter with mental health. So
yeah, but what is the difference between, so you had worked for Paint Valley Mental Health,
mm-hmm.
and that was one type of job, but then when you moved on to Ohio State, and that's in the hospital environment, what's the difference between the patients that you cared for at Paint Valley Mental Health versus the hospital atmosphere?
So that is a really good question. I for the case management is more going into the home setting and helping people kind of do their ADLs. Now,
what's that stand for?
ADLs is just everyday lifestyle skills. So, chores that you would do around the house, taking care of your body, eating properly, making food, things like that.
Okay.
Excuse me. And so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of managing their, helping them manage medication, helping them apply coping mechanisms when they have, when they're having, mental health symptoms. Majority of the clients that I dealt with were severely mentally ill. So we're talking schizophrenia, we're talking schizoaffective disorder with a major subdiagnosis of bipolar, type 1 and type 2, and depression, with, PTSD, trauma history, where, many, there was at least five that I worked with one-on-one, very close with, that had their parents beat them every day, and then they had drug abuse because after they got into high school, because they were trying to escape the trauma. So, I've also dealt with the VA here in Chillicothe. So
The Veterans
it's
Administration, the Veteran Hospital.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we've also I've also had experience working with, the guys that are coming back from war and
So
suffering
these
from
these patients that clients, patients, however you word that, at Paint Valley Mental Health, and you would go to where the living facility or homes
Mm,
and help them with life skills and keeping them taking their medication for the betterment of their health.
yes.
And a lot of them didn't want to take it.
No, I was the bad guy.
Yeah.
I was the dude that came
Yeah.
around, and they were not happy to see me all the time. Um, I'll say that the hospital setting actually is a little harder because you don't get to the timeline is different. You know, at Paint Valley, I worked with roughly 25 to 30 patients a day, and which is too much, by the way, but I'll get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I build a rapport with these people, and a lot of times I was the closest person to these people. They didn't have connections. They burned their bridges, which happens so easily when you're talking about psychosis, or you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that is seriously struggling with some serious mental health issues that's been neglected for years. And so it was a lot of responsibility. I struggled with symptoms of burnout because I was overworked, and I had 25 patients to one case manager a day. It's just too much.
Well, and the
Like,
other part of this is I know you deeply cared for them.
it was a lot of energy, and I'm the type of person too that, like, I don't like conflict, and this job kind of beat that out of me because and I had a wonderful mentor that really, really baptized me in the crucible of mental health and helped me through a lot of hardship because, she,
Say her name.
Marva Brown.
Mm-hmm.
She was the one that took me under her wing and really showed me
That you can't
everything about it.
you can't allow all of these encounters that are negative wear you
She
down.
immediately, it was funny too, because she immediately saw, she was like, I know you care, but you gotta dial it back. Like, you gotta kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say this too. It's so funny because our two children, they are from the same two parents, and they could not be any different. Tori's real high energy, is responds to everything with equal or more force than what is given. And he is like, hey, what's up? It's fine. A great listener and all of that. You should tell him about when you moved her into her new apartment. She was having a really bad time.
Yeah,
And she broke something, and tell him about the neighbor. Just real fast. It's funny.
The
So you were helping, that said, oh, well, you guys are just moving in. My sister is.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him what you said. It's so funny.
I'm
When
sorry. I was reading the chat, so I was like, I was kind of paying attention.
That's why I don't read them. I have
know.
Lynn put them up, but I want to say Tess and my sister and Morgan and Jennifer and Robert and Kathy. And I mean, all of you guys that I can see that Lynn's putting your questions and comments, Natalie, Ray, Sean. I mean, this means so much to us that you're tuning in. Shanna, all. So this is, Jerry. I love you guys for piping in, but Dalton was so calm, but he was helping her move into her apartment over the summer, and the trash can broke, and she had flipped out like it was. Dalton asked her, "Is this an heirloom, a family heirloom?"
It's like a typical guy stereotype thing where it's like, you don't understand that, like, the basket needs to match the bathroom and like the covers that are on like the soap dispenser and the towels and everything. Like, as a guy, you're just like, the towels are over there, the soap's right there, and it's whatever, you know, you just throw what you buy.
Yeah, he
stuff at
definitely
Kroger.
does.
But she had carefully, you know, put all of this stuff together, and I was helping her move stuff in.
It
And
was just him. That was
Yeah.
David and I had COVID, so it was just him moving her in.
I didn't realize what I had broken.
It was a trash can.
So
she was very exaggerated. And then right after that, the neighbor next door, she's like, "Oh, the neighbor." And you said, "Now's not a good time."
Yeah, she was having a mental breakdown over this trash can. Like, I'm going to tell the neighbor, like, "I'm sorry, my sister is emotionally unstable right now because I broke her trash can." Like,
It's so funny.
We'd both have a trip to Harding. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. So anyway, we'll get back on what you're doing here, but yeah. So can you give us an example? So the difference between working with the patients, you had too many patients at Paint Valley Mental Health for one caseworker. You really deeply cared about them. You made a difference in their lives in a special way. They didn't want him to leave when he left, and that made it even more difficult.
That was rough.
But the hospital atmosphere, you know, they have their, they both have pros and cons. Let's just say that. But can you tell us a scenario, no names, of course, of a time where you had an encounter with a mentally unhealthy patient that you helped? Can you think of anything?
Yeah, I have many, but I'll kind of give an overview of like the difference real quick to answer the question. It really is the timeline that I have to spend with people. So case management, there every day, kind of felt like a parent. So I feel bad now because all the crap that I put my parents through, and I'm kind of getting, I got that perspective of like having to do something in the person's best interest, even though they think you're the devil, you know? And then also it's like, they hate me, but I'm the first person they run to when they need help. And so it's just, you know, that was rough to kind of learn. But in the hospital setting, you know, we have a total of 24 patients or 24 patients on unit. And the time, you know, they stay anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. Sometimes in the more severe cases, we've had people stay 3 months, which is
rare.
It's rare. So, but the main difference is, besides the timeline, is the fact that I'm there with staff, I'm there with security, I'm there with people that have my back, and it's not just me. And that is crucial, because as much as I loved the staff at Paint Valley, they couldn't be there through every interaction. You know, it was like Marva had her list, I had my list, you know, we were going our separate ways, we were doing stuff. And of course I would bounce stuff off of them. Of course I would, you know, hey, this happened today, it freaked me out, you know. But having people actually there with you throughout the different interactions throughout the day, it makes a huge difference. And it's a lot easier to call security than it is to call the police and then try to contain what's going on to one area and not let it affect other people until the cops get there to like help you with somebody who's experiencing severe psychotic symptoms. So yeah, that's.
But so I want to know about a situation where you help someone.
I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, because at the end of the day, I'm doing my job and I'm doing what I want to do. And there are so many other people who are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. So I don't like telling the stories too much, because I don't want to be like patting myself on the back, you know. I'm doing what I love. So of course, like, have I helped people? Yeah, I have. You know, but it is a part of the job, and I'm not doing it, you know, for the praise or anything like that. Like, it's the reward comes from.
So that's a disclaimer, I guess.
Yeah.
So you can tell us your story, like whatever you think of.
So we had, in my case management days, there was a guy that was living in a rundown shack, wasn't taking his meds or anything. And it was just brutal. Like, that is the best way to put it. Like, it was messy. He was unshowered. It was just worst case scenario. And so I worked with him over the course of a month, really, to get his social security card, to get his ID, to get a new place and everything, and worked really diligently with him to take his meds, take them on time, get into a regular routine throughout the day. And there was one day that I was just doing my normal rounds, passing meds and everything. And he said, "Thanks for saving me." And it just, those moments when you have another human being look you in your eyes and say, "Nobody cared about me. Thank you for taking the time to care about me," that's life changing. And it's stuck with me to this day, because that made it all worth it. I wasn't looking for a thank you anyway, but it was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this the rest of my life, because it's sad. Like, I have so many of you that I have known throughout my life that bend over backwards for me and would for me. I have parents that care about me and love me. I've had the privilege of a very blessed life.
No.
And I've been out in the community and I've seen people that have had the exact opposite of my life. Now, that's not to say that we don't all have our problems. That's not to trivialize anything that goes on in our days together, like all of us together, because you can only experience your life. It's not trivial. The problems that you have are not trivial, but it does put it into perspective, like, to appreciate the things that we do have, the people in our lives that we do have. So it's very impacting to have somebody do that, to have somebody, and I mean, this guy was psychotic too. So for him to have the insight, you'll hear me talk about this a lot if we talk at length about mental health. Like, a lot of the things that we discuss is about insight. People that have severe mental illness lack a lot of insight and stuff. So this was a big moment for the guy.
Yeah.
So,
and also it meant a lot to you too. Why do you think, what percentage here's what I don't understand. Most, or many, I should say, people with mental health issues typically try to use drugs and alcohol as a form of medication to help themselves out of it. But then when they go get help and they get put on medication that they actually need to take for what they have, they don't want to stay on it. Why? What's going on there?
It's a lot. It's a multitude of factors. So you'll have people who that's what they've grown up with. That's what they've been exposed to. So you'll have somebody who has grown up in a family that has used, crack cocaine or heroin or something like that. So they've been around it. So that's prior exposure. It's the people that, so, there's, number one, there's stigma around mental health. There's no getting around that. Like, we're a growing field and we're still trying to work through that. So there is the stigma of it where you try to hide it. If you go to a hospital or you go to see a doctor, you're not hiding it anymore. Like, you have the diagnosis. And even though people may not know that, like, that. And for a lot of these patients, like, it's kind of an admission of failure to them. It's a lot of people talk about, like, I shouldn't be here. And it's like, but you need help. Like, why wouldn't you want to get help? So there's that. There's the problem with peers. So, like, they're at a party, their buddies like, "Hey, this'll, I know you're down," or whatever. This is something that'll help. It'll be a pick me up or something, so it's about, prior experience and exposure to the drugs. It's about the environment, the people that they hang around, how they were exposed to it. So there's
and the
that.
stigma. I mean, that's huge. I really feel
And the
like
stigma, yeah.
people,
And
I
the
mean,
medication's coming from a doctor,
yeah.
so you have to look at it in terms of these are teenagers typically when they are exposed to it, if they are not exposed to it by their parents. So a lot of the people that I worked with and still see in the hospitals were exposed to the drugs by their parents. So from a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
The people that I worked with, and as a case manager, if they weren't exposed to it by their parents, it's usually they were at a party having fun, and that's how they were exposed to it.
And it's a temporary fix. So they think, oh, I felt better in the moment. Then they crash. Then they do it again to bring themselves back up. And it's a vicious cycle.
And I mean, once again, it's teenagers usually if they weren't exposed to it by their parents. I mean, it's a lot cooler to say, I'm just taking a party drug, man, than it is to say, I got evaluated by a doctor and he prescribed me my drugs. I take them every morning, evening, and night. Like, that's an adult thing to say. Teenagers
they don't want it. That's true.
They're not wanting to.
So what do you think that, let's say a parent, maybe someone who listens in the future or currently right now. Hi, Dan Ramey. Hi, Kelly Prater. Do you have any advice? Let's go with this. Kelly says, do you have any advice for parents trying to help a teenager suffering from mental health problems who are pushing away those who love them the most?
That is hard. So in Harding, we have 5 floors, but really it's just 4 floors. So the second floor deals with depression and anxiety, mostly borderline personality disorder. And it also addresses a lot of our patients who are maybe elderly or have other medical problems that need addressed as well. So it's once again, like, we need bigger facilities. We need more people because that's a lot to put on one unit, right? The third floor deals more with schizophrenia, schizoaffective, more psychosis. The fourth floor deals with teens. So first break, psychosis. We're talking anxiety and depression and stuff, but it's mostly, we're talking 18 to 25, 18 to 30, something like that. And the fifth floor is another unit dedicated to psychosis because we come into contact with it a lot. Because
I think
majority of the time, those are the people that are not taking their meds. Those are the people that are having trouble with routine. But getting back to the question, I've worked on the fourth floor with many younger patients, and it's a tangled web of a lot of factors. I mean, I could spend the next 3 hours telling you about all of the different factors that contribute towards someone young who is struggling. One of the things that Marva had taught me really early on is that you can't work harder than the patient. So, and she knew that I was already, I was going 70, 80, 90, I was doing everything for these people. But if they don't want to do it for themselves, the moment you're out of the picture, it falls apart. They do what they want to do. Part of the reason I burned out was because I would leave. If I were to take 3 or 4 days off, I would come back and I would find a lot of the patients in the same position that I found them in. All the work I had spent tirelessly pounding away was just gone. And it made me realize
like that too.
Yeah. Well, you love your kid. You love the people that you're around. You pour your heart and soul into the people that you're close with. So when you feel like you're beating your head against the wall, it's almost like a part of you also knows you can't stop because you can't help it.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to just not care. I'm not supposed to just love this person, like, and want to strangle them at the same time. Like, it's so there is no answer that I can give that's going to take that feeling away, because with somebody who you really, really care about in your life, that care is going to keep you from completely detaching.
Mm-hmm.
If it was somebody that I was talking to that was a friend with somebody, you guys have probably heard this before, where it's like, maybe you should distance yourself. Maybe that person doesn't need to be in your life. But if it's a family member, it's like you're talking about distancing myself from somebody who's my family. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do that. That's
Yeah.
not an option. So I'll rely on the second thing that Marva told me, which is sometimes people have to hit rock bottom before
They want to do the work.
before they can make proper change in their life. Once again, that is an answer that is not feasible. You think about it and it's like, I'm supposed to just watch this train wreck happen and not do anything to try to stop it. So, you know, I'll use an example of like parenting. You know, as a parent, you want to guide your kid, but you can't live their life for them. And I can tell you from personal experience, working with patients whose parents have done everything, have
Mm-hmm.
lived their life for them, it doesn't help them. It doesn't. In the end, you have somebody who has a developmental disorder where they are not adults. They're 24 and they're not able to move on because their parents have completely stunted their growth. And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a balance between, and I don't know, being a parent and loving and always letting them know, no matter what, I'm here and I love you, but we're not both going down. Right. I mean,
Right.
because, I know.
I think that, a better answer that I have found in my own practice would be finding an individual that can reach that person. It's always about making this sounds manipulative, but
Mm.
you've got to be able to find, like, if you're trying to break into a house and you can't get in through the front door, find a window. You know what I mean? So like
Are you saying find a person who is a mutual, like a therapist that the kid or the young adult
mm,
can trust and really enjoys opening up to?
right.
Um,
But it's about finding, either through that person or putting ideas in somebody's head and here's one of the things that I struggled with her
mhm,
was I didn't like it when she told me what to do, even
yeah.
though I knew even though I knew she was telling me the right thing, right?
Mhm,
But the minute she started asking me questions about what I'm doing and why I was doing it,
mhm.
see, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about what I was doing. I was just going against her because I was a teenager. I was a butthead. And that is what happens to a lot of parents and young kids and teenagers, because it's just like, he's not listening to me. Ask him questions. Ask. Because the more questions you ask, they have to think about an answer. They have
And
the
maybe they won't answer, but at least they're
right.
still thinking about the question.
So it's, then it becomes the balls, and the answer is coming from the kid. It's not coming from the parent. The parent knows the answer. So it's kind of like you're leaving breadcrumbs, right? Of questions that leads them to an answer like, hey, cut it out. You're being a butthead and it's not going to serve you. So, that's a way of addressing the
I
issue.
saw, first of all, Morgan Adams. I just love her. And she's saying something here, but congratulations on being in the master's program yourself and doing good work,
Mhm.
Morgan. Yeah, Morgan's saying pushing away is typically a protection tactic that they have learned and are afraid they can't open up without getting hurt. Also,
Mhm.
them feeling that they have a safe space to feel they can open up is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're
Absolutely.
100%.
But
I mean, I don't know,
it's
but
a,
I just know that.
it's an anxiety response, guys. Like
Mhm,
you have people that have, you're born with a particular temperament in your personality and
mhm,
how that you view the world through that lens. So how you deal with problems is going to stem from your lens. So a lot of people do push away because it's, number one, it's uncomfortable,
mhm,
you know, to have to be faced with emotions that make you feel bad. So you avoid them. And how you avoid them is you run away or you push away. And those
mhm.
are two big,
So
absolutely.
what Shanna Mavis, I love her. She asked, what kind of resources are there, if you know of any, for parents who feel like they are being pushed away? Are there resources for that?
There are resources. I know that there are social workers that can do therapy. There are
So therapy would be your, if a kid's pushing away, maybe they need that middle ground person who they can talk to, because like
mm,
I always said, it takes a
well, and
village to raise a child, and I loved my friends and my
mm,
family helping, be that person that you can talk to, right? I mean,
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't just have to be me, because sometimes we would butt heads and we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. And
Mm.
sometimes that would be
We have a PHP program um, at Harding that really works with a lot of young adults and teens and things. It's
how would one reach, they would call the Harding
you
Hospital
would yeah you would
to
call
get
through you would call,
directory?
and we call it one thing at Ohio State. There's plenty of programs that are offered by other hospitals and things like that. The What I would caution you is to know your kid and know whether or not they would do better in a group setting or um, one-on-one therapy. A lot of, it's a personality thing, it's an individual thing. Some people do really well with group therapy, other people do better with
One on
one-on-one.
one.
So
I have a question. I don't know if you want to share this and we can divert. I have other questions, but
mhm.
you know, um, you have always been a likable guy. You're in sports, one of the better athletes in high school. You had a lot of friends. Um, you went off to college and you had some struggles of your own. Do you
Mhm.
want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I won't harp on it too much because it's just, once again, I had a blessed life. So, but it's also kind of goes to show you that it doesn't matter how good of a life you have, mental illness, if you're prone to it, can creep in and take everything away from you that makes you should appreciate. I struggled with depression. That was my big thing. I You want to talk about pushing away. I completely closed myself off. I feel like looking back, I was always kind of prone to that because I felt intense emotion whenever I was with people. So when my grandpa died on my dad's side, Grandpa Bing, I
Went off the
I
rails.
went off the
Sad,
rails,
very, very
and I
sad.
had seen him pass, so a very it was a traumatic experience. It was something that you don't you can't it's like a detachment from reality. You can't believe what you're seeing. Uh so I shut off. I turned it off. I turned my emotions off. And it took me years to come to just to come to terms with the death. And then I had all of this emotion and thoughts and grieving that I hadn't done when I should have, and that turned into depression. And once again, like, it was nothing. It's nothing against my parents. It's nothing against the community. It's not against the school. I have no ill feelings about any of it because mental health isn't talked about. Nobody knew what this was, and every interaction that I did, every major sports activity and things, like, it took so much energy out of me to do that. And when I was in college, it, I didn't have sports there. I was away from my family. I was away from my support group. I was away from my friends, and it got bad. It got so much worse. I started self-isolating, and then I started beating myself up because I wasn't doing as well in school. And even though I pulled myself through it, when I look back and I see the struggle and the baggage that I was creating, every bad interaction, I just would throw it in the closet, and shut the door. Don't focus on it. And it took me a year of therapy and medication to overcome that.
But
And
before that happened, I just want to share with people that, sometimes you just don't know what people are going through. So, it was one of those things where I had been after him. You need to go to he's like, I want to be a psychologist. I can't get my own shit together. Like, I'm going to have to go talk to someone. And I said, what did I say?
She said it would give me perspective, and it did.
Like, who doesn't, if you go to someone who's a psychologist and they know what you've gone through, and he's an empathetic person anyway, but
this is part of the depression. This is part of the anxiety that hides itself. Depression is way more sinister at that than anxiety. Anxiety is like, your heart's racing, and, it's obvious to people that you're struggling with something. Depression is very, very sneaky, and it looms in the background. And it only comes when you're weak. It doesn't attack you when you're strong. When I was at sporting events and I was doing well and everything, I was fine. But then I would go home, I'd listen to one bad song, and I'd go down in the hole. And it just waits. It waits till you're weak. It waits till you get that C on the test. You could have done better. It hones in. You focus on your failures. You focus on the bad. You don't see the good, and it keeps you there. And it feels like you're drowning.
So, what advice, now that you've gone through, and then I gave him, he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do because he felt like he was still able to do things on his own, fix it on his own. And finally I said, just try it. Please do this for me. If it doesn't help you, just stop, but at least try.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give people listening about if you're feeling depressed and you feel like nothing is ever going to get better? What advice would you give someone?
First off, you don't understand how good your life can be if you were to do the things that you need to do, and make the changes and make the sacrifices that you need to do in order to improve. And one of those sacrifices is going to therapy, going to a doctor, being seen. It feels like you failed, but if you're already feeling horrible about yourself, you've got nothing to lose. You've got your pride, really the thing that you've been beating yourself over the head with. It's not, you don't realize what could change. And I think that once again, Marva's second rule, sometimes you got to wait until somebody hit rock bottom. Well, I hit rock bottom. I said, I can't get any lower than this. Try therapy. And I had no idea that I would be sitting here. No idea that my life would be the way, as good as it is. So it's a leap of faith, and you've got to
be an advocate for your health.
You got to choose to do it yourself. And that's a difficult leap to make, but it's easier if you know you have people in your corner that are rooting for you and are supporting you.
And if you don't, you will find people who will root for you. If you go get therapy, just like people like him, one of these days, he just recently, you want to tell him you got into the master's program.
Yep. So going into master's of social work.
Right. And eventually your ultimate goal is to get your PhD, right?
And do therapy. Yep.
And do therapy. So you'll meet someone like this guy who will genuinely care about you. And you'll meet people after that because you'll be healthy enough to want to find your people. That's the other part of it. And,
so I wanted to do this real quick because I know we're running a little bit lower on time. I mean, if there's any more questions, because I know I've done a lot of talking about my own path and things, but I love answering questions. I love talking
I don't
about this
know
stuff.
if anybody's asking questions or not, but once again, it's there's a stigma. It's kind of taboo. It's like,
well, sure, absolutely.
Like when you can't get you're weak, you can't get your thoughts together, you can't get your emotions together. No, it's not like that. And we always say, I see Trudy on here. Trudy always said, Trudy was one of the people I talked to a whole lot when you were struggling, and she lives in Cincinnati, and I used to see her all the time. I'd be like, oh my gosh. And she's like, my daughter has diabetes. She has to take medicine, So why do people that need to help, with their mental health not want to take their meds? And so, but you want to be a psychologist. So you're not going to be a person that pushes meds unless you see, hey, it's a chemical imbalance, it's a hormonal imbalance, it's something, let's figure it out, and then go to the medication.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. But, and I mean, there's tons of people who are like, my life is great, I'm goal oriented, all this stuff, and then they are having this feeling, they're depressed, they don't know why or whatever. Medication can really, well, I feel better now. I mean, I don't have that, weight. Other times, like myself, it's a combination of the two because you're unpacking years of mental abuse that you've done to yourself. So,
well, the other part of this is, I know the analogy that you had given me, once you did therapy, they said, yeah, probably medication would be good and a low dose and all of that. And then you tell them what you said to me after 3 months of therapy with a low dose medication.
You come out of it as somebody who, when you get to a point in your depression where you have even good feelings are a avenue for the bad to come in. So you begin to numb yourself even to feeling.
You mean prior to therapy?
Prior to therapy, prior to medication.
Okay.
So you're numbing yourself to everything. You end up numbing yourself even to happiness. So you don't feel as happy doing the things that you normally would. And after 3 months, it was like, I can feel again. I can breathe, so it's.
But you told me when you just getting out of bed in the morning, it would feel like I'm walking up a mountain with a bag on my back full of bricks. And about 3 months in, you said, I'm still walking uphill, but I don't have the backpack of bricks. And
I've learned to like, it's kind of funny because you guys are getting, as I progress through my years of mental health in my career, I realized that the bag doesn't always get lighter. You just get stronger. And then, that it doesn't wear on you as much. A lot of people talk about, I can still feel it there. I'm still struggling. There's times where I still struggle, or, so, and if I had to like wrap everything up for you guys, it would be medication can take the edge off, can give you the shot that you need to feel better, to go through therapy, to push yourself to better your mental health. It's just like physical therapy. You're not going to break a bone tear a muscle or whatever, and then it just heals on its own magically, or you take painkillers or whatever and it just heals. No, you've got to work it out. You've got to, that's part of it. So, and I know that a lot of people are skeptical about meds, and psychiatry is working through it. We've come a long way. I mean, antidepressants have come such a long way. So it is only going to get better. Mm-hmm. So we have to continue to work through these problems. We have to continue to talk about mental health, do the research, put in the work. And this goes for both the clinicians and the patients. Mm-hmm. So it does work. It's not an instant fix. You're not going to come in and get prescribed a happy pill. Trust me, we'd all be on it, I'm sure, if that was the case. And there are doctors that are pouring their heart and soul into studying this and trying to overcome the obstacles that are put in our way. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, part of what we're going to enjoy over his 2 days home is the Stutz documentary. I've watched it twice. I want him to watch it because it's Stutz, Dr. Stutz. It's about him. And it is it's on Netflix. I would advise any of you who are interested in psychology or helping someone get to the next level in their mental health journey, I would watch that. Stutz, Stutz on Netflix. But the other thing I want to say that I heard you say, and I want to repeat it, that I think is really powerful, is that you can't, as a technician, clinician, nurse, doctor, physician, you can't do more work than the patient.
Yeah.
They have to want it and do it. So if you're a parent and you are caring more about getting your child well, then reach out for someone else to maybe be able to mentally reach your child, to have someone else to talk to. Maybe that's the first step. And also, I want to ask Dalton, because we could talk all night because he has a lot of thoughts on healthcare, but we don't have time for that. So we'll have him back on about mental health, healthcare, and his ideas to make it better, not only releasing stigmas, but about the actual processes of helping people in hospitals and not. Okay. But since the show is Find It, what of all the things that you have found in your life can you share with us that you have found to inspire us to find it too?
To find it too. You are so much more powerful than what you think you are. The upper limits of what you are able to achieve, think, feel are so much higher than you allow yourself to believe. And I've said that to many patients, and they've come back. We've had a few patients actually come back to the hospital and tell me Barb. that it's true. I didn't realize.
But you also found that for yourself.
Oh yeah, big time. And I mean, I'm here to say that I am wholeheartedly, a product of psychiatry doing their part with medication, and psychology doing their part in therapy. I mean, it helps. It absolutely helps.
And I go, Dalton, the world needs you. You got to go back to school and get that PhD, because you're going to make a huge impact. I believe it with everything in me. And I think you do too. You do.
I want to.
Yeah. You want to.
I mean, it's not like I've got this, ordained by God mission. You know what I mean? It's just something I want to do because there's a lot of people that need it. And I love being there for people that need help. And I love being there for the people that have supported me. And it's my passion. So that's what I'm going to do.
And I think I'm on board with it. I'm going to be behind you, cheering you all the way. We've got a Chihuahua snoring between us right now. He has that effect. He's just as calming. But anyway, love you guys for tuning in.
You so much.
Yes, Brooke Adams, how you doing? And I saw Julie Preston and Ray Martin, and thanks, Ray.
Oh,
and
thank you.
And Barb Coulter is such a cheerleader for me. I could just kiss you. You're so good to me. And Sean, she loves us.
Mm-hmm.
She just said loves you, and Vicky, my sister Victoria.
Yep.
But before we leave, it's like the holiday season. It's going to be round. I mean, I think in May will be my year anniversary of starting this podcast. But since it's around the holidays and my kids seem to like the idea to be on the show, next week, my daughter is going to be on the show.
There it is.
There it is. So tune in next week for Sassy. It'll be a whole different vibe for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so tune in next week at the same time for Tori.
Oh, yeah. Hotline number.
Hotline number.
So
let's do the hotline number. Oh, Linda Kerr. Thank you, Linda. She was one of Dalton's teachers at Bishop Flaget. Dalton was the Larry Cox won the Larry Cox Award at Bishop Flaget, and that was a fallen officer was shot in the line of duty, and Bishop Flaget created an award that would go to a kid that most exemplifies those things that Officer Cox had, and Dalton won that. He won't talk about it, but I'm a bragging mom, so I will. Okay, go ahead.
So
do you have the hotline?
The suicide hotline is 800-273-TALK, which is 8255. I was trying to find there was also a number that Harding has as well, but I can't.
But Harding Hospital at Ohio State is where Dalton works. He is seeing the staff, and they are doing amazing things. Dalton feels a real awesome support system there. They all get along, and he's having a great experience at Ohio State. So, but anyway, my heart is so warmed by having him next to me and having you guys on the other end. Truly mean it. I'm like that, aren't I?
Yeah.
He's like, I've lived with her. Trust me.
Yep.
It's always like, oh, God, and that's so nice. So anyway, I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for joining us. It means a lot to both of us. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Have a great night, everybody. See you next week.
That floats around me, keeping me safe and